Probably takes a few minutes to let everyone trickle in. We'll just check if it's working all right. Here we go. Scott AI. Good to see you, buddy. And Kayla. The second one in. How's things, Scott? We all good? Tommy did a recent chat with Scott. Scott's one of our agency partners at Synthflow. He's an automation king. He's using a lot of our API side pretty heavily and is doing a lot of cool stuff. So you two should definitely hook up at some point.
Great. So nice to meet you. I actually can't see him. Is that on purpose that I can't see the audience?
Yeah, so we can only be able to see me and you. Everybody else is in the chat. I'm not sure if you can see the participants at the bottom of the screen. Should be two little men. This is cool. This is a new layout as well for circles. We have participants, we have guests. So I presume this is open to more than the community, which is nice. Cool. Hey, folks, we'll just let everybody filter in maybe for 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. This one's going to be super casual chat with Tom. Tom's building a really cool voice AI analytics product. It's like the Mixpanel for voice AI agents. So if anybody's been running phone calls through Synthflow or any other products for that matter, figuring out if they're actually doing a job or not is quite valuable. So we're going to be chatting about that. Hey Scott, good to see you. Who else have we got in here? Kyla, Kevin, Daniel, Bell, Sachin, Daniel, Hitesh, Musin. Good to see you all. Thanks for coming and taking the time. If you have, hey Kane, if you have any questions throughout the chat, you can pop them in the chat, or if you want, we can answer them on screen through the Q&A tab, which are just triggered on, and then we can bring them on screen and answer them over the course of this chat. Okay, who else we got? Hey Dave. Okay, I guess we'll just get it rock and rolling. If anyone wants to filter in after the fact, we can. So thanks everyone for joining. I'm joined today by Tom Shapland, who's building Canonical AI, which is a mixed panel of voice AI agents. You missed that intro before. So I guess kick things off. How are you doing, Tom? And do you want to give us the quick one-line intro, who you are and what is Canonical? Canonical? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, you did great. You said it right. Yep, I'm Tom Shapland. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Canonical, and we give you visibility into what your voice AI agent is doing. We also give your customers who you're building voice AI agents for visibility into what your voice AI agent is doing. And what we're finding in building this product is that there's some hesitation around the voice AI, your voice AI customers, to expand their usage of the voice AIs that you build them. But once you give them more visibility into what's happening and they can see that the agent is performing as expected, that's what really unlocks growth. And our mission is to help voice AI developers unlock the growth in voice AI by helping their customers feel more comfortable with putting their brand and their sales funnel on the line with the voice AI agent you're building them.
Yeah, I like that. It does seem a lot of the time it's a bit of a black box and people can say the voice AI do certain things, but can you back it up with the actual data that says this call is successful? Did it go through? Did it complete the goal, etc.? You've been doing this for like a year, it's coming on a year and a half, August 2023, if this is correct. So you've been in the space for a little bit. Has this always been the same product?
No, actually, we started with something else. So I'm going to go a little bit further back in describing my background. I started an agriculture technology company back in 2014, and that company got into Y Combinator. And it was a great company. We were building a sensor that helped farmers figure out how much to irrigate. It was based on my PhD work, and it was really neat data feed. It was a good company. And in the process of building that company, I became more acquainted with non-deterministic neural network type models. It was when the TensorFlow API came out, we were building cool computer vision stuff on top of our data feed, and really liked it. And eventually I found a good home for that company. That company was called Thule and was acquired by CropX. They're great people. And I wanted to go on the startup journey again. And of course, my co-founder and I, who was also the CTO of my last company, we wanted to work in LLMs. And initially we were building a caching layer. The idea of a caching layer is it's like a smart database. Every time a query came in, from a user asking an LLM something, we'd look in that smart database to see if essentially the same question was asked before. And if it was, we could return the answer from the database rather than calling the slow, lumbering LLM. And that led us to reach out to a bunch of voice AI developers to see if they'd be interested in it. This was about, that year and a half mark ago. And what we found was latency was a problem, but well, actually, I kind of skipped a step there. The thing I really want to emphasize here is we just fell in love with the voice space. We started meeting these voice AI developers and seeing all the cool stuff they're building, and just seeing the incredible potential for voice AI that everyone here in this session with us believes and feels and has examples of seeing it. And we just fell in love with the voice AI space, and we realized the cache wasn't the right thing to build. It was too slow, or the growth was too slow on it, I should say. But what our friends in voice AI kept telling us was hey, I've got these contracts with these big potential clients, but they're only dipping their toe in the water. And I need a way to make them more comfortable with my voice AI. And I don't really blame them for not being comfortable with it, because I'm manually listening to a few calls. I don't have any sort of visibility into what's happening. Can you build something that makes it easy to show people here's what's happening in your data and everything's going as expected? So we started building that. We shipped the dashboard in early October, and it's been really fun. It's been great ever since. I just love being a part of the voice AI community, and really glad to be here and hopefully get to meet some of you that have joined and get to make more friends in this space.
Yeah, that's cool. Was there one demo when you were kind of exploring options where you thought, holy crap, this is the space that I need to apply my time into?
Yeah, what was the moment where I was oh, voice AI is so cool? I think for me, a lot of it is when I first logged into Synthflow, and it must be similar for so many people. You first log in and build your first agent as just a toy, and it calls you, and you're oh my God, I can talk to it. And it just, I feel I still build voice AI agents just for fun on the side, little toy demos just for fun. I built one that was a baseball game for my son. And I feel I'm an artist with a palette, and this really interesting palette that I get to work with voice AI. And I just think it's such a neat space to be in. And also, I see a lot of calls that people make, voice AI agents make, and it's amazing to see how well they can work, when they just nail it. The customer's skeptical and they're let me talk to a representative. And then the voice AI just solves their problem. And at the end, they're thanking the machine. It's just magical. It's clearly the future.
Yeah, some of the times when you listen back to a call, so if you're testing an agent, and I've done it a lot of times, where you're tweaking a prompt and suddenly you hear a recording of a conversation and you're damn, that was actually really good. So you're tweaking things like sentence length and do say this, don't say that. And once you get that conversational flow right, it's like music to your ears.
Yeah, what was that for you, Tom? What was the moment where you're oh, voice AI is the space I need to be in?
So I've always had a community going for a few years called Shiny Object Social Club, where it's just a bunch of us hanging out in a Discord and playing around with any new tech that's interesting. And then I think 11 Labs came along when it was synthetic voices, and you could actually just get it to say stuff. And then there was a bit of avatars coming around. And then that got applied to phone calls with things like Synthflow and VAPI at the time. And I wasn't an extremely technical person, so Synthflow is obviously the natural fit, being a more no-code solution, and the feeling it just gave that I could now have this power to create these really powerful workflows and tools and functionality was just wild. And then things like connecting it with other automations, which we're going to have a look at in a minute, where you can not only extract information from the phone call, but also have it trigger other workflows internally and make internal calls and outbound calls and hooking them together. It was just felt like everything is now on the table.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's cool. So yeah, analytics has been kind of missing for a bit. What have you seen with Canonical? And do you want to give us the rundown? We're going to do a screen share too, so you can do that whenever you want. So basically, if I'm right, this gives you a really easy way to see how your agents are performing. That's correct, right?
Yes, that's the idea. It gives you and your customers an easy way to see what your voice AI assistant is doing. And for you, it helps you improve your agent. And for your client, it helps you feel comfortable with what you're doing so that they'll start pushing more call volume through it.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And have you seen like the take of it? Is this meant for like smaller agencies, SMBs? Are you scaling to enterprise? Where does it fit in?
Enterprises are always the slowest, right? I think that um, they they clearly aren't going to use voice AI until they have a lot of comfort with the fact that the voice AI assistant is doing what you expect. So they're definitely going to need people selling to enterprises, building voice AI for enterprises, and enterprises are going to need something like what we're building, but it's not really my initial focus just because it's so slow to get going with enterprises. Our customer base really is two different categories. It's vertical SaaS, specialized vertical SaaS voice AI companies that are focused on something like building a voice AI assistant for HVAC businesses. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
or they're the AI agencies, and that's part of why I'm excited to be on this in this session with you. Is like I think Synthflow does a great job with AI agencies and fitting the needs of the AI agencies, like with the white label product and that sort of stuff. And the AI agencies, uh, you know, the other type of our customer, and we find with both of those two types of customers, the vertical SaaS and our AI agencies, they kept coming to us saying, "Hey, can this is cool what you've built for us, and it's helping us to hone our agent and refine it. But can you also build this? Can you also expose it to our customers? Can you give them a login, or we embed what you've built into our website so that they can see what's going on with the data?" So that's kind of the direction we're going with things now. And making progress on that as well. I'm sorry, that's kind of maybe a
Nice.
little rambling answer.
No,
Does that?
that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, we've got a bunch of AI agency owners in here. So are you going the full white label route, or is it more like semi embeddable sort of scenario?
Yeah, so let me describe the current state of the world and then also where we're going. The current state of the world is you, as the voice AI developer, can send us calls. You send us recordings of the calls and a transcript. And I'm going to go through later how to do the integration with Make
Mm-hmm.
and also the integration just with code. I'll point to that as well. Um, then you can log in and see all the calls for the different agents that you send us. In addition, you can work with us to set up a login for your client, and your client can only see their agents. So we set it up in such a way that your client only sees, the agents they're supposed to see.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's the current state of the world. Then next thing we're building is embeddable components. So if you have a dashboard, like you're using the white label solution for via Synthflow. In Synthflow, you can take like the call flow diagram that I'm going to share with everyone shortly, and you can embed that in the dashboard so you can show your client that as well. And then finally, this is in the works, but I'm talking to the co-founders of Synthflow about doing a more native integration that just makes this whole thing easier for you guys, and that there's not really this step where you have to mess around with it. It'll just be one click, and you can get this stuff right there in Synthflow.
Got it. So I guess are you able to like, trigger different kind of queries depending on like the outcome of the call, like in real time, or is it's more of like a upload in batch and then analyze after, say, like a campaign?
It's a little bit of both. So let me describe like the main
Also,
thing.
we can share the screen at any time. So whenever you want to add context to what you're talking about, we can do that.
I'll first describe it, and then I'll show
Okay.
it, and then I'll summarize it again. So the what I want to describe is the first thing we show you is um, visualizations of what your calls are doing. So most of your calls will likely go down this happy path that you designed, but some calls will go off that happy path and take a turn, and those are the ones that you want to look at, and they'll help you as the voice AI developer to improve the agent. And that requires that you log in and look at the data, and this is also what the voice AI developers customers also like. They like being able to look in and kind of see the different paths that the calls are going down and get that kind of warm, trusting feeling that they can believe in this product and expand with it.
Got it.
The other thing we do is we have push notifications to Slack around insights. So like right after a call ends, if it was supposed to be successful, if it was most likely to be successful given the fact that of how long it was and what path, what call stages the call went to, but it wasn't successful, we push those to you and make it easy for you to look at those and see if you need to do any damage control or you want to make any changes to your prompts or your integrations. And then the last part is audio metrics. So we have metrics like the latency, the number of interruptions, and that sort of stuff. And that's really more for helping you surface different types of issues and dig deeper into how the agent is performing, and also like give reassurance to your clients. Like, look, most of the time my latency is, this many milliseconds, and that's within the human, what's normal for human conversation, and things are working as expected.
Got it. I guess that kind of gives you the opportunity to be a bit proactive as well. So if you're already seeing like a higher threshold of either failed calls or ones going off the happy path or higher latency, then you could kind of proactively get in touch with your clients and just to let you know this is happening. We're on it and we're looking at a fix.
Yeah. So my last company, we helped farmers make irrigation decisions. And I think initially my first instincts, especially as a former academic that built this technology and was so close to me, was like, if something went wrong, I didn't want to go get the farmer's attention and bother them and be like, hey, this went wrong. It just didn't feel right to me at the time. But then later I realized that the key to our success was being very transparent with our customers. So we were always talking to our customers when we saw something good and we wanted them to like notice how well this thing went. And also when something went bad, we reached out to them because it's better to hear it from us and that they know that we're working on it. That's what prevents churn. Than if they find it on their own. It's all about maintaining and building that trust with your clients.
And what is the kind of state of monitoring and analytics tools, especially when it comes to third party? Obviously, we do stuff internally at Synthflow, but I haven't checked in too recently on all the available tools out there. What's the ecosystem looking like right now?
I think what the ecosystem looks like is indicative of the state of voice AI right now. Voice AI is this emerging field, and there's some people getting a lot of traction in it, but not most people are still kind of in the early stages of it. So if you look at what other tools are out there for helping you, like third-party tools for helping you develop your and understand how your assistant is doing, they're mostly on the testing side. So the side before you deploy your agent into production, it's for like running simulations of lots of different scenarios and making sure that your agent is trying to automate that testing that all of you are familiar with doing. The problem with that approach is like once you test it, it's great. You can feel very confident in it, but there's no way to really simulate human behavior. Like humans are the most unpredictable force in nature. And once you put your agent out into production, and if you have agents in production, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like people do weird stuff, and you wouldn't expect what would happen there, and you're going to really need to see what your agent is doing with real humans to figure out how to improve it and how to improve it. So in the pre-production side, there's companies out there like Vocera and Koval. In the post-production, there's us, which is more of like this low-code way of doing these things that's really amenable to working with AI agencies and your end customers. Or you can use more higher code solutions. Like you can set up a whole like Datadog pipeline and build your own visualizations and data flows through with Datadog, but the problem with that is it's not really centered around voice. Number one, it takes a lot of technical skills, and second, there's a lot of problems with voice that are different from just looking at like traces from text-based LLMs. So I really think this area is kind of nascent and emerging, and we're seeing things emerge like what we're building.
Got it. What's been like the most common thing that people have found after implementing your tool that they weren't aware of before?
Oh, interesting. Well, I think I once heard, I was listening to a podcast recently of YC partners, and they were talking about what makes a great SaaS company that really can capture a lot of the market, like a Gusto, isn't that they do one thing really well. It's that they do a lot of little things, and they do all of those myriad little things well. And when I look at voice AI assistants, I can always kind of tell when I'm looking at the data that our customers send us is like how how much care and time the developer has put into developing and how much time it's been in production. Because there's always little things along the way that it's just lots and lots of rough edges that need to be smooth. So finally, I'll give examples. It's like a notorious one is I should actually more generalize first. There's all these workarounds you have to build given the current state of the voice AI technology with text to speech and speech to text and LLMs, even with the audio only models. And if you're not careful about how to do those workarounds, like how to get email addresses or being careful about like repeating people's names, then you're going to run into problems. And it's really that sort of constant careful hewing and craftsmanship that makes a great voice AI agent. I gave two examples there, but I mostly spoke high level. Let me know if you want me to dig in more.
No, that's good. No, I like it. I think still very few people, I think, really digging into the analytics because there's not too many doing a lot at scale, but I presume that's going to ramp up now that they're getting more accurate and they're getting easier to create and deploy. So yeah, I expect that to increase soon.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the chat and I'm seeing that people are eager to see screen shares and they're eager to figure out how to connect.
Especially Nick. I think Nick's very keen to see a demo and a screen share. So let's dive in and we can keep on asking questions.
Let me start sharing my screen. Let's see, give me just a moment.
And any questions as you go, fire them into the Q&A. We can bring them up on screen, or you can even come up and ask it yourself, whichever you fancy. Okay, cool. We can see it.
So if you want to follow along, I'm going to drop this in the chat. So here's the sequence of what I'm going to go through. I'm first going to fairly quickly walk you through our platform and what we're doing. And then from there, I want to spend more time focusing on how you can integrate with your Synthflow agent with our platform. We have a free tier, so it's easy to get started. I just put into the chat also our blog post that really walks you through how to integrate with Make or with code. And that's what we're going to cover now. So without further ado, let me go back to our dashboard. I'm on our demo account now. And when you first log in, you see the summary page. The summary page will show you how many calls you've uploaded and the total duration of the calls you've uploaded and some high-level stats. Where things get interesting is when you scroll down and you click on one of the agents that you've uploaded, and then we can dig in and look at that agent. So I'm going to scroll down here, and I'm first going to talk about how we process the data. You send us, for each agent, you initially send us, excuse me, I should say it differently. When you connect a new agent to us, we take the first 15 calls that you send us, and we use those first 15 calls to figure out the stages of the call. What I mean by stages is an agent will typically go through stages like greeting, appointment scheduling, answering a question about a product, and then closing the call. We figure out what those stages are. And then once we have those stages, every time a new call comes in, then we can take each turn in the conversation and assign it to the stage. So When the user says hi, we can assign that to greeting. When the user says, I want to change my appointment, we can assign that to appointment scheduling. And what this enables us to do is to determine a path that each call goes down. That call path is helpful in and of itself, but it gets really helpful when you can take that call path and look at the call paths of all your calls for a given day or week and really get the bigger picture of what your assistant is doing.
So you do all that automatically. You don't have to submit a call structure or anything. You can just get that from the calls.
Well, I'm really glad you asked that question. That's what I was about to say, is that we do it automatically because some people have so many agents, they don't want to go in there and edit each one. But also, if I were logged into my personal account right now, you would see a little edit button here. And you can edit the stages to better match what you think they should be.
Got it. Okay, makes sense.
We do the same thing with the call outcomes. So we use the first 15 calls and some LLM magic to figure out what the typical outcomes are of the call: appointment not scheduled, appointment scheduled, or product inquiry handled. Then we use those outcomes. LLMs are just like people in that they're more likely to be accurate if you break things down into small steps for them. They're more likely to be able to solve a problem when the problem is broken into small steps. So we take those outcomes, and then in another step, we ask the LLM, was this a successful call given the outcome or not a successful call? Again, you can edit the outcome names in our dashboard. You can't see that here, but if you log in, you can see that. Can you still see my screen, by the way? I just opened it.
You can. Carry on. We're good.
Just click on the sign up button here. You can sign up for free, and you get, I forget how many free minutes do you get? You get 4 hours of calls per month for free. So you can click that sign up button. And once you sign up, you can click the upload calls button. We have a GUI for getting started. So you don't even have to integrate using Make or code initially. You can just download calls from Synthflow and drop them in here. And that'll bring you back to what I was showing you earlier, where you have they'll bring you back to our dashboard. So it's really easy to get started and try it out. You just go to, I'll drop this in the chat. You just go here and click sign up, and you can try it out and upload calls.
Nice.
Okay, so now that we've uploaded calls, I wanted to show you some of the things you get. So this is the thing that the voice AI developers' customers seem to like the most. It's this call flow map. And I think it just gives people reassurance that they can see, like, oh, the voice AI is doing what it's expecting. Like, initially it greets the people, and then after greeting them, some amount of calls go to objective not met. Like, yeah, people sign out, people hang up. That's pretty normal. People hang up right away, but even that's something you can optimize as a voice AI developer and work on different tricks. But then the calls are getting, from their partition, some are going to appointment scheduling, some are going to product inquiry handling. If we go to appointment scheduling, we can see that some go straight from appointment scheduling to closing call. We can click on either a node and see all the calls that went through appointment scheduling, or an edge between the nodes. And that'll bring out a drawer where you can see the calls that went through this stage of greeting to appointment scheduling. And what I'm looking at here is a call where it started with greeting. You can see the stage and who was speaking. It was the assistant. It's a greeting. Then the user says, I'd like to schedule an appointment. That conversation turn was assigned to the appointment scheduling stage. And it just gives you an easy way to kind of look at your call volume and see, like, oh, I see what's happening. Everything's going as expected, or something's not going as expected. This is going to be an easy way for me to click in and look in and see what's happening and see what I need to change. I'm going to pause there.
Yeah, that was really good. That was a really good walkthrough. So let's say somebody's looking at this report and they see there's something which has gone off the happy path and they want to dig in, how would you kind of recommend someone evaluate those calls? Just click in and read through the transcript, and you can kind of tell where they've gone off path?
Yeah, actually for that, so this first screen is really something that's like for your quick view of understanding what the call is doing. If you want to figure out how to improve your call, I actually like the call map more. And maybe that's a bias because I'm a little, it was the first thing we built and I think it's neat. But with the call map, it's a similar thing where we're showing you the stages of the call. But what's different about the call map is we'll highlight in red where most of the calls are stopping with failure. It makes it easier to subset to just the calls that are going poorly. The other thing you can do with the call map, and in the demo account, it's not as good of an example, but you'll see something like most of your calls, like 106 calls here, 47 calls here, 17. This is the happy path that most calls are going down. But you might find like this weird branch, and it's when you click on the branches that go off in an unexpected direction that you find the insights. You'll click on those and it will, and if you click on the transcript part, it'll bring you to the part of the conversation where it's going off the rails. It'll highlight it in yellow and it'll give you ideas about what you need to improve about your assistant. We haven't,
Got it.
one of the things we want to do is like start using diffusion models to turn this into like a comic book panel, so it's quicker to read because reading transcripts is slow, but people can ingest that
Yeah.
file stuff quicker. But we haven't built that yet.
Yeah, we have like the LLM as judge to just like evaluate. It's the call and it summarizes it, but again, that's still like a bit of a pain to read all these summaries, especially if you're doing any sort of significant call volumes. This might be a bit of like a out there question, but presumably it might be possible, and I don't want to kind of guess features, etc. But you could almost kind of extrapolate something like this out to self-healing and self-recommendations through call improvements, and maybe if somebody ships like an incomplete assistant that maybe could use another couple of stages added onto it, you could probably even tell by and having a decent bunch of calls running through your system.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're going with this. So I'm going to pop over back to my dashboard
That
because
wasn't a pre-scheduled comment, by the way.
because I'm logged
If
in.
anyone's listening.
uh, I can't show it, but we have a feature where you can integrate with Slack. And what we're doing with that Slack insights is we're showing you like, here's a call that went down a happy path. 90% of your calls that go through all these stages, the happy path, they complete and have a successful outcome. But here's a call that wasn't successful, but it went down the happy path. Look at it. Um, and where we want to go from there is to then take those calls that should have been successful because we've figured out how to subset just to the calls that should have been that are problematic rather than like manually sampling. And we want to suggest improvements to people's system prompts to help them figure out like, oh well, these calls are going poorly because when the voice AI repeats their name back, spells their name back, it speaks way too fast. You got to like prompt it to speak slower. Things like that we think we want to get to the vision that you described, Tom, where we can help kind of build self-healing systems with a human in the loop.
Yeah, I'm wondering that you can really pull some really good insights out of this. And like I said, having the data served up this way, like a visual for any decent sized company who has to report on the effectiveness of these things, that's going to be a really useful page to show them.
Yep. Yeah. So another thing I'd like to show is the custom metrics. So what a lot of people, because this is in line with what you were just talking about, Tom, you can ask custom metrics of calls. So the summary is great, but summaries, one-line summaries, LLM as a judge, they don't capture kind of what happens within a call often. It often glosses over. This is a common problem with voice AIs. It glosses over kind of the details that might have happened in particular turns of a call. And one of the ways to approach that issue is to like look at call maps, and it'll help you identify the different stages that you need to focus on and subset rather than random sampling. Another thing you can do is you can define custom metrics. Like you may be interested in knowing your voice AI should be asking in the US for consent to record the call. And you might want to ask, like, did the assistant ask for consent to record the call, and we'll then, for every call that comes in, we'll ask that question and we'll surface. You can click on the times it's false, and we'll show you just the calls where that was false. And you can look in and be like, why did the voice AI not ask for consent? And you can see what the issue was and try to figure out how to improve it. So it's just one more way to improve your agent. And it's also something that like your customers might be interested in too, because they're like, well, how can I get my voice AI assistant to sell better? How to handle this objection. Did the voice AI handle the objection or something like that?
Yeah, nice. There's a couple of like interesting quirks sometimes come up in assistant calls. One of them is sudden, bigger latency gaps in between questions. So let's say if you have a script and everything's going really nicely, but then suddenly for some reason, a question comes up, the user responds as normal, but then there's a big lag, and then the user has to repeat themselves, and then maybe the assistant repeats themselves, and then it kind of gets through it. Is there a way to identify something like that in your system?
Yeah, so this is like, it's almost, when I see this happen the most is around interruptions, where like the person, the voice AI will think the person has finished talking and it'll start talking, and then the person will like wait for them, and it just like the question ends up getting repeated and things get confusing. Is that when the type of scenario you're talking about, or maybe did I miss what you mean?
Sometimes it can be like a rogue background sound which cuts the response out, but there is now and again, I don't know if this happens when you're just maybe listening to voice AI calls all day, so you're more attuned to it, and then the normal person won't notice. But sometimes you do find that now and again there comes like a little bug where there's like a 9 out of the 10 questions that the assistant will use on the call will be absolutely perfect, like normal latency expected, but then one of them, for some random reason, just has like a double or triple the length of gap. And it'd be good. This is maybe like a more minor, like fine tuning use case rather than a high level general one, but it would be good to be able to identify those. And I see it when I'm doing recordings, for instance, and doing videos, like because I'm looking at the audio waves between the responses, so I can see the latency gap on each response, and sometimes most of the time they're even, but then you can see one which is like double the length of the other one.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So we calculate on the back end, we're calculating the latency that for the human response and the latency for the AI response, and we're calculating how much of the time the person is silent when it's their turn to speak, which is indicative of confusion, and all these other audio metrics. We haven't surfaced them yet. We just have when you log in, this is something where shipping hopefully today is something where you can just download all those metrics for your call, so you can see the latency for all your calls. But eventually we want to surface that and put it in what we call a rain cloud plot, where right now this is the call duration distribution, and you can see like most of the calls, this is a frequency histogram. It's a frequency distribution. You can see most of the calls are around here, around 30 seconds. And then the individual calls are these dots underneath. And we want to create a drop down here for latency. So you'd be able to see like, oh, most of my calls have pretty low latency, but you could click on the ones with higher latency and see what was going on with those and see when they happen. Are they happening because of interruptions, or is there some way you might be able to improve the flow so that those latencies are less likely to happen? Or like there's a long latency and maybe you want to go tell your client like, hey, this thing happened. But we're working on it. It sometimes happens. It's okay. Most of the time your latencies are over here. There's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, sometimes it can be random things like response length or sentence length, or if they're doing some sort of RAG over a knowledge base which has like an awkward setup, then there's just like a bump in latency there too. Or if they're making like if they're using a custom action which is like a laggy API and they don't get a response back in time. Yeah, having that flagged would be absolutely awesome, especially at scale. That'd be killer.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said speaks to the craftsmanship of building voice AI. Is like you can, I think, you can get something up and running in 5 minutes, and that will get you 80% of the way. But the next 15% is going to take you a lot longer and a lot of skill. It's faster to get there if you have a lot of skill, but it takes, really understanding how these systems work and how to like avoid these latency traps and other problems that can come up if you're not designing your system well and carefully monitoring and analyzing it.
100%. If anybody's kind of new to Synthflow, we can just cover what we're talking about a bit more. Is if you're using something like custom actions, or if you have your assistant connected to a knowledge base, if a user asks a question which isn't in the prompt, then it can go and look up through a document or a series of documents or a PDF, and then bring that information back into the call, which may take slightly longer than a predetermined script. Or another one which you can do in Synthflow is something called a custom action, which is basically just like an API call, which you can either trigger to happen before the call happens. So actually, an example I like to use is if you want to get the weather. So if you're doing anything with like an outside venue, for instance, you might want to know the weather to determine what you recommend to the end customer, or if it's like a car service or like a concert or whatever it is. Then you can bring that weather forecast into the conversation. You could probably do that before the call starts, then you avoid the mid-call conversation. But if you're the mid-call latency, one way to cover that, if you're doing it mid-call, this could be something like looking up an order ID in a Shopify store to track where the shipment is. For instance, that could be the customer gives the ID. You can look up the database to see the status of the package. And to cover that API call going through to Shopify, you will set in your prompt or in your field in Synthflow, you can trigger the agent to say, okay, I'm just going to look up your information now. And while the assistant is saying that sentence, it's making the API call at the same time. So that then covers that lookup. Hopefully that makes sense.
That was a great intro to knowledge bases and RAG and tool calling. All right there, very succinctly.
Thanks. I'm not the most advanced custom action developer. We've got a few killers in Synthflow who does some amazing stuff, but that's as simple as I can understand it anyway.
So we're talking about how to integrate.
Carry on,
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
No, let's do it. I was just going to go there. That'd be awesome.
Okay, so one of the links I dropped in the chat was to this blog post that tells you how to connect your Synthflow agent using Make. And the place really to start, it walks you through all the steps. But you can also download the scenario. Like if you go into this blog post and scroll down, you'll find the scenario where you can just download it and upload it into Make. So just backing up a moment, Make is a platform for doing server-side automations. So it's like instead of writing server code, you can use Make to take the data from a call and do something with it. Like, send an email with it or whatever. And you can use Make also to send data to our platform. So you log into Make, and the first step is to create a custom webhook. And this walks you through creating that custom webhook. And then you would then go into Synthflow and go to your agent that you want to send the data from the call data from that agent to our platform. And you'd click on deployment and REST API, and you would paste in that webhook that you got from Make. Then the next step is, the easiest thing is to just download the scenario from our website right here, and then you upload that into Make. And then the final changes that all you need to do to finish the integration is you end up going into, here, I'll go into my Make account, and you have to, it'll look like this once you upload your file into your scenario into Make, and you have to put your API key in for Canonical, and then it's ready to go. I blaze through that really fast, but that's just the bigger idea. You might be wondering where you get your API key. To get your API key, you go to our website and you click on the little icon, and there's the setup button. and you can get your API key from in there. And I don't know, maybe I went through that too fast, Tom. Should I slow down on part of that, or does that make
No,
sense?
that's good. I think make integrations are probably a bit more like on the niche technical side anyway, and it probably won't be one of the like beginner use cases for using make. I think probably a lot of people are still at the either just triggering a call by a make with Synthflow or retrieving the details of a call by Synthflow. So I need to actually produce some more education materials on this too. So maybe I can fire up a tutorial soon.
Yeah, and our tutorial actually, and you might find it, people here might find it as a good way to get started with make, because it's like walks you through an example that you can get up and running, and kind of acquaint yourself with the make system. We
This is
also
in the chat, isn't it? Yeah, monitor Synthflow voice AI in your course. Cool. I'll drop this in the academy too.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. And you can also, I also linked to code on how to programmatically to our docs, excuse me. So if you're writing server code, and you want to integrate with our code and send data send the calls via the API, that's all in here. There's a tab for Synthflow for hitting our Synthflow endpoint. So that's there for people that are kind of interested in integrating with code.
Nice. So how granular can you get with the make integration? Can you I know make's pretty comprehensive once you're passing JSON through. Can you, I guess then you can filter and filter by if there's like an unintended call which goes through depending on how you're labeling it, or a failed call, and you could trigger a Slack message too. Would that be right?
Yeah. One way
Can you pick up those dynamically created call stages from the retrieval?
So one way to do it, I'm going to start with the way that kind of better maps to my way of seeing the world first, which is like just send all your calls, use this make scenario here to send all of your calls to our platform, and then use our platform to figure out the calls that you want to be alerted about and you want to surface. And you can set up the Slack integration for that. You could create a more sophisticated, the other path is to create a more sophisticated make workflow where you're using some of the information that you can get from the end of the call, the events that get sent to the make webhook, and using that to decide what to send to our platform and what to do other things with it, along the way. I think that's what you're getting at, right, Tom?
Yeah, pretty much. Nice. And one question I did want to ask is I guess this is going to start becoming important when now everybody knows you can measure these calls, and we have obviously the Synthflow analytics, which are just surface level. Now we have this, which is slightly more in depth. What would we be able to at some point create a downloadable report with like a snapshot of the month's worth of calls to be able to then send it to a client? Or is this is the one? Wait, hold on, let me go back. You can actually just share this with the client, right?
Yeah, so that's what I was about to say, is that you can give a login. We can set you up so that your client can log in and only see their calls here. And that way they get, the interactive experience rather than a static report. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're working on, I'm hoping that we'll have a native integration with Synthflow, and that will be these sorts of charts and the other analytics products that I've shown you along the way, like this stuff, that'll all natively be in your white label account. And then, like, along the way, if people want, something that turns this into a PDF because they have some old school customers that want PDFs, we could probably make that happen as well.
Just fax it to them in letter format.
Yeah.
Nice. That's cool. So has anybody got any questions over what you've seen? Any automation folks? Maybe directed someone like Scott, who's very heavy on all the automation side in something like Go High Level. Is this something you could work into your stack for clients? And then if there's any left field questions for your voice AI in general, or questions for Tom about plans, far away, and then we can spend a few minutes answering them. But yeah, so while we wait for any questions to come through, is there anything else that's interesting that you're looking at in voice AI that's kind of separate to this? It could be people releasing new models, it could be languages, it could be latency related things. What else in this space are you interested in?
It's always kind of tempting to talk about like the latest demos that have come out that showcase the cutting edge abilities of voice AI and multimodal AI. And a lot of ways, I think that's a little bit, it's just, it's not as, it's almost taking our eye off the ball. What's really happening in the world right now is we're in, um, we're used to this idea that you can do amazing things with LLMs, but some of you might have noticed this during the holidays, that like the Thanksgiving holiday, or you'll notice it at the upcoming holidays. Most people that you interact with, maybe they have a ChatGPT account and all they've said to it is hello. They're like, we're all living in the future, and we don't realize how much opportunity there is just to bring people that aren't in the future that we're living in right now up to where we are now. And there's so much money and opportunity in helping the world go from where it is now just to the current state of technology, with these interactive voice assistants. And I think part of the reason we don't realize it is I'm constantly talking to people like you, Tom, or the people in this chat, or in this session that like are living in that future already. But I think that I think what's really exciting is just like the opportunity that's here in front of us with Synthflow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. You kind of get wrapped up in everything because it moves so fast, and that curve has been so violent that you do realize that every day something new's coming out, but still people are still catching up. So that's a great point. We have a question from Nick. Does it email a report, say, once a week, or notify of errors as they happen for real-time alerts?
So we have the current
Yeah.
notifications we have are the Slack alerts, and they'll tell you when a call was a long call that typically finishes in the success but failed, or if it was a call that was on the happy path that normally finishes in success but fails. We haven't built any other sort of like email reporting or other types of alerts now. I'd love to hear what you'd like to have built, Nick. It's a fun stage of the company we're at, where it's just my co-founder and me at this stage, and we're working closely with our customers on getting feedback, and we love getting to hear and build things for people.
I wonder if there'd be like a good way. I think it's pretty applies to Synthflow too. We're just saying if like a certain amount of call volume then kind of falls outside of the norm in terms of completed call ratio or something, to actually just pause the assistant. Trying to get like that feedback loop. That'd be quite cool.
Yeah, that would work really nicely for an outbound agent, right? When you have a little bit more control over, it's okay. It would be okay to turn it off for a little bit to make some changes.
Yeah, rather than just pumping out loads of calls and realize that 5,000 of them have gone crazy.
Yeah. Kane, nice. You just asked about booking a call with us. I just dropped my Calendly in there for anyone that'd like to meet me. And also, I'd love to connect with people on LinkedIn. I just like seeing people write cool demos on LinkedIn of what they're building. And it's like LinkedIn, it went from being like this boring thing I hated being on LinkedIn and Twitter when I was running my ag tech company, to like, it's kind of a trap for me now. I spend way too much time on LinkedIn and Twitter just because I get to see like the coolest stuff that people are building. So I'd love if people, oops, that's the wrong link, would connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter so I can stay up to speed on what they're building.
Amazing. And any other thoughts just from, we can like wrap up after this, if anyone's got any more questions. Any more thoughts in just general like AI applications? Is there any, I don't know, probably haven't got much time for side projects, but is there anything like hobby related that you're playing around with? It could be video generation, images, language translators, language learning. know that with my kids, they've been spending a lot of time with stuff like Synthesis Tutor for math, which is going really well. So, any of those type of scenarios you're in?
I'm sorry, I missed that. Are you asking me or are you asking the community? Should I answer
No,
first? Or should...
to you and to the community, actually, if anyone's got any good ones.
Um, yeah, so one of the things I'm really interested in now is how do you get emails from voice AI? They bobble it all the time. And I have this API that I just shipped yesterday, but still last night actually, but I haven't built the testing around it. But it's basically a way to accurately get an email from a caller. And what we're doing with it is we're just doing a lot of data processing to extract the proper noun, the spoken letters, and hand that back. And I think um, I don't know. I find it to be a really neat problem. It sort of goes back to this idea that I think just voice is a neat space with so many neat problems. And like even this one's kind of a mundane problem, like extracting an email from a call, but like it's just been really fun to work on. And I'm excited for getting it to the point where I can start demoing it and hopefully maybe even integrate it with something like Synthflow.
That would be useful because that is a current pain point that requires a lot of not creative prompting, but attention to detail. And it's, if you don't explain it well, then a lot of people do slip up, especially when they want to capture customers' emails and then they come through wrong. So yeah, +1 for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's neat. And the other stuff, I just saw a post by um, Quinn at Daily, who's a friend of mine, and he used Gemini's multimodal to basically, I think, show us what the future is going to look like, where you're talking to a computer, and the computer is able to see what's on your screen, and it's going to respond to you in text and voice and video.
Yep.
And I think as humans, we find it easiest to speak, but we ingest information with our ears at a slower rate listening than we do for visually. We're like visual creatures. So I just think we're going to have this future relatively soon around the corner where people are talking to machines and machines are talking and back as well as showing us information back. And I think that's really neat. I mean, I've started talking to my computer too with WhisperFlow and have really enjoyed
Yeah,
it
I
as
use
software.
WhisperFlow all day, every day. It
Yeah.
basically doubles the amount, it doubles your speed of like output. So any text box is there, you can just reply twice as fast. So like Slack replies, email replies, like DMs. Yeah, it's incredible. Love that tool.
Yeah, so you're mostly using it for email and Slack. Is that the main thing you're using it for?
Sometimes I do it for like notes. I want to take a quick note. I use that pretty much anywhere, actually. Sometimes I will use it this weekend. Just gone, I was using it in Bolt.new by StackBlitz and also Lovable. And it was just building. So while it was building, I was doing something else. And when it comes back, I'll prompt it again with just my voice and then just go off. So you don't actually have to type. So you're building software just with your voice.
Yeah, what platforms were you doing that with?
So one is called Bolt.new, Bolt.new
Oh yeah. Yeah.
by StackBlitz, and the other one is called Lovable,
Yeah.
Lovable.dev.
I haven't heard of Lovable yet. I've been hearing lots of
That's
people
really
talk.
good. Yeah, and another one, if anyone's interested in,
It's the one I keep hearing people talk about, NYC.
Yeah, there's another one actually, which you may be more interested in, which is open source, works with Llama 3.3 Centi called Cerebrus Coda. I can share the link in the chat for anybody who's still here. This will build things in under 1 second, which is kind of ludicrous. But yeah, the whole space is moving very fast, and we've got lots of stuff to play with. So yeah, voice AI is a super cool space to be in right now.
Yeah,
Kane just said, final comment. Agree on the problem. One letter missing in an email is a complete void. So we focus only on the right phone number and then do post after post automation, getting the emails right in a new flow. we always focus on getting the phone right during the call, caller ID and confirmation by voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, I think it's probably a good place to end. Anything to add, Tom? Anything you want to add at the end?
No, I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to me and listen to my opinions about what's happening in voice and give me the opportunity to tell them about what we're building. Really means a lot to me. Thank you.
Of course, I appreciate you taking the time to share with us, and maybe soon we'll see an integration inside of Synthflow if all goes well.
Yeah, that would be great. Looking forward to it. Hopefully we can figure that out.
Nice. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everybody, and see you back inside the community. This will be posted straight after the call, the replay, and we're posting up on YouTube too for everyone to see. Thanks, folks. Catch you on the next one.